Have you ever thought about how much first impressions matter? We all know the cliche anecdotes about, dating and stuff like that, but that's not what I'm going to talk about today. Today I want to talk about how first impressions for your product matter. This is my space shuttle. It's from the Lego box 6346, produced in 1992. And I recently put it back together after I went to see an actual space shuttle. I thought it would be nice to kind of have it back. It comes with a built-in the Canadarm and a little satellite to deploy. Now, if you were fortunate enough to grow up with a lot of Lego like I did, you probably know what Lego is, but if you don't, it's the brick building toy for children that has many middle-aged people still enjoying their childhoods up to now. It's the toy that connects two bricks and then takes another two and another two until eventually you've built a complex structure with close to little understanding as to what you've done and how you've done it. It was invented in the 30s, kind of got perfected in the 50s, and it's still around. And just like IKEA's Allen key, there's certain things that have never changed. So who am I? I'm soon to be verified on Twitter, apparently. I'm Cristiano. I run a small developer experience consultancy. And one of the things I like to do is to look at the onboarding of various companies and like Stripe and Twilio and see what's good and what particularly sucks. Today I'm going to take a similar look at what we can learn from Lego, from Lego's onboarding experience. And then along the way we'll learn a bit about human psychology, first impressions, and how all of these things can affect your product's experience, and the developers that try to use it. There's a lot of stuff on that. The big red logo, the product number, the indication of complexity. But there's so much there that isn't quite that obvious. Lego has done a lot of stuff to put us at ease with this design. It's often easy to forget that your external developers are not the awesome master builders that you are. And yes, a master builder is a Lego term for somebody who actually makes these pieces of art happen. They haven't gotten any experience with your product. They don't have any experience with your industry. They don't know what your product does and probably don't know what it is for. And not unlike the average age of a first-time Lego builder, your average developer is probably going to be a lot younger than you. And with young age comes a lot less technical experience, a lot less life experience, and probably a high ratio of Lego experience. Lego's job with the design of these boxes, besides selling you the product, is to overcome these deficiencies. The boxes are there to inspire you that you will be able to do amazing things with their product. They show you the finished product, the parts it's made of, and sometimes even the basic assembly steps. For the more complex products, it also shows different variations you could build with it. And this is core to the Lego experience if you think about it. But if you really think about it, it's also core to your product. Because you don't want people to make the samples that you've written for them. You don't want them to make the guides that you've written for them. You want them to make their product happen. You want them to build their product with your product in it in ways that you haven't even thought about. So the real thing about a first impression isn't about looking good or having the best product. Rather, it's about making sure it's about making sure that people have the confidence that they'll be fine. You want to inspire and motivate them. We also want to make sure that they know what they're going to be able to do with this, even if they've never used your product before or are new to programming. In technical products, there's a few ways we could approach this. Firstly, we need to motivate and inspire people. We need to tell them that our product is going to solve a problem they care about, or they might not even know they had, but they're intrigued by. I personally love the way Pusha does this. Pusha has this sample on their website. It's a bit hard to see. They have this curl command. You paste it into the terminal and it changes the color on their website. In a few seconds, and without mentioning how it's done, they show you how easy it is to push any event to any browser. With one curl command, they instantly get a developer thinking, oh, that's interesting. I could use that in X, Y, Z. And they did all of that without boring you with the technical details as to how this works. Which brings me to the second point. It's important to give our developers the confidence that they can do it, and not just you. We need to make sure that we make them feel smart, even if they have almost no dev experience or experience with your product. Pusher does a great job of keeping the jargon low. They don't talk about WebSockets. They keep the technical terms and acronyms to a low. The only remark I'd really have here is that you need to know curl to make this demo happen. And that one step of copy-pasting the curl command to a command line is still a point of failure where somebody might not experience your product. And if they can't experience your product, that is a potential point where they will drop off. In general, I find that images, especially animated images, that people just have to click on, are a lot more foolproof. That will work for everybody. So once you've reached these goals of motivation and inspiration, the real end goal really is to put confidence into your end users. And Lego is great at getting people started with that confidence. This is the actual manual for my space shuttle. I'm surprised it was still in one piece. I was very careful putting it in my bag this morning. And we're all quite familiar with manuals. A Lego instruction manual is the ultimate getting started guide, right? It's included in pretty much every box unless it has like 3 pieces and it's hard to figure out, it's hard to do it wrong. And it helps people go all the way from 0 to hero, helping them in every step along the way. It's an amazing achievement that all of this is done without any text, without providing any technical explanation of what is happening. See, the human learning process is kind of circular. It's a feedback loop that promotes really small steps. We learn, reflect, and repeat. Learn, reflect, repeat. And if between reflect and repeat, we look at what we've done and what the expected outcome was, and we see if there's any difference, and then adjust our next steps. Now, when we find a really big discrepancy between what we expected and what we got, we get very confused and it's really hard to compensate. And this is where people drop off. Lego has mastered this process in their manuals. As you can see, every manual just starts with a few bricks at the top, and then a few bricks more and a few bricks more. And if you've assembled Lego boxes like I have, you'll notice a few patterns. For example, there's a few ways to ensure that your product is structurally sound. You can do that by kind of interlocking the bricks so that the joins aren't all on the same spot. That makes your product stronger. What is interesting is that this is a common practice in architecture, aerospace engineering, and in many, many other industries. Yet, it's never labeled like that in the Lego manual. It's never explained what it is. It's just there. Instead, people are simply shown step by step how to do things the right way. And they do this without labeling it, without resorting to jargon, without creating an artificial divide between amateurs and professionals. Now, I want to take a little sidestep here, which is you can overshoot this and think that your product is an Apple product. Your product is not an Apple product. Apple has mastered the design of products that do not need manuals. And I love that. I love products that are intuitive and easy to use, that are forgiving and self-correcting. These products don't need manuals, but like I said, your product is not an Apple product. The user base and the expectations of your products are vastly different than that of an Apple product. Inherently, any developer product, if you think about it, whether or not it's an API, an SDK, or some kind of tool, is going to require very specific input to do very specific things. Input that's less forgiving, less self-correcting, and therefore more painful to bugs. But your product is also going to be highly efficient to solve certain problems, so people do want to use it. So just like Lego's interlocking bricks will teach people how to make a sound structure, your manual will need to teach people how to do things they didn't even know they needed. I want to reiterate how important it is that these manuals take people from 0 to hero, all the way through, from brick number 1 to a full space shuttle. If Lego would only take you halfway there, halfway towards making a real product, the satisfaction would be immensely lower. If they just went, hey, here's the first 5 bricks, you can figure out the rest, you wouldn't be happy at the end. Yet many of the sites I've looked at have a big Get Started button on the front page that will take you to sign up, take you to the dashboard, and then leave you there. That is not getting started. That's getting me signed up, and that shows that your business is really just all about collecting emails and not about creating success stories. And this is really the core of what I'm trying to tell you, is that in reality, every step in your process matters. If your Get Started guide gets somebody through the first steps, as we mentioned, and manage to inspire, motivate, and sign up a developer, you then need to make sure that you help them make their first API call, that second API call, become an actual product and become successful to finish the space shuttle. Now, have you ever looked at how people find pieces? Who here has kids? Must be a few. Who here still feels like a kid? Great, okay. You might remember this, it's like, when you look at how people find pieces of Lego, it's very interesting. I mean, similarly, like how do people find their next piece for their IKEA set? They do not evaluate every piece on the table. They don't go, okay, what is exactly the piece that I need? That would be insane. That would take ages. Instead, they just look around for the right color, approximate right size, grab it, see if it fits. If it's not, grab the next one. This behavior is called satisficing. It's the same behavior that we see in firefighters when they come to a fire. They don't go ahead and start randomly, start making an exact plan of what is the best approach, the number one best approach to deal with this fire, because in the meantime, the fire is still going on. People do the same thing when they read websites. People come to your website and they just look at what they probably want and click on it and try it and see it. If it doesn't make sense, they reevaluate what they want to do. They go back and adjust along the way. In an API, this forgivingness can be achieved by adding some level of self-correction or forgiveness to the product. One way to do this is to add detailed error messaging that signals to the developer what mistake they made. I often see errors that are just either a code or some message that is nothing more than invalid. Now, it would be tempting to provide some notes on your guide. Let's put it in the developer documentation, because that's where people should be reading this, and they should be reading this, because this is important, and this happens so often, we should write this down somewhere. Now, Lego does this sometimes, like when there's confusion around certain pieces, like which piece do you need? Like here on the top, like just to make sure you have the right one, there's a one-on-one comparison of kind of the size of the piece that you need. But as a product owner, I'd almost always recommend to instead improve your API and SDK to be less ambiguous, to remove the confusing elements rather than patching them with text that nobody's going to read. So that really brings me to the core of the message, which is, if you take one thing away from this entire talk, is that nobody reads. The average website visitor takes less time than it takes for you to blink your eyes to determine not just what your site does, but what page they're on within your entire website, within your entire domain, what they can click on, and what they could potentially achieve with your product. As much as you might be some artisanal crafter of excellent technical copy, people are just not going to read it. Instead, they're going to try and build what they think they can use your product for, and if they can't, they'll adjust along the way. That piece is actually part of a larger set. There's a whole trailer that the space shuttle can fit on. This is a little car. Have you ever seen the little doors where they open and stuff like that? They're almost in every little set that has a car or anything in it. You've got the little doors. It's easy to think that your product, like this door, has a specific purpose, that you thought of it first and that it's the only thing people ever want to use your product for. The reality is very different though, that just like a Lego brick has a million different use cases, your product will and should be able to be used by people with crazy ideas that you never imagined. The door is one of the examples, but I've seen it used as the wings of a small plane, the ears of a bunny as a speed bump, and much more. The Lego experience doesn't end with the set that you bought though. It goes much further beyond that. For example, this space shuttle has actually spent approximately 16 years completely in shatters in a box at my parents', because when I was about 18 or something, I went to uni and I never got around to putting it back together until a few weeks ago. Now, Lego has embraced this idea of people wanting to build other things with the Lego pieces they have though. They have something really catchy called the Lego.com Digital Designer Virtual Building Software. Quite a mouthful. Which you can use then to create new creations and share them on ideas.lego.com. And if you make something and it receives over 10,000 votes, then Lego will consider it as an official box and release it. And they'll put your name in the manual, and you'll be an official master builder from Lego that has an actual box created and shipped, and you get a part of the revenue. They'll make you a master builder. Now, if you flip this with my experience recently with Amazon Echo, it's very different. Often with developer products, we stop supporting people after the first implementation. I recently built an Alexa skill, and Amazon, besides having a pretty bad getting started experience, has a pretty horrible experience when it comes to when you submit the skills. It took me 3 attempts to get my skills submitted, even though I had to fill in like 4 or 5 forms of documentation. And in the end, when my skill did get accepted, there was no congratulations, no celebrations, nothing to kind of celebrate my success. And it's important to celebrate the success of your internal developers and your external developers. The support for developers should not end with that first implementation, rather it should continue all the way into every product they build, every product they use your product in, every crazy variation of what they're doing they might consider. The developer experience should not be that of learn, build, reject. It should be that of learn, build, share. So to wrap things up, there's a couple of things I want to summarize. Some of the real lessons we can learn from Lego. One of the big ones is that we all learn differently. We all have different ways to assimilate information. We all have different starting points about where we start when we want to start building something new. We have different experiences, both technical and in life. We have different cultures. We have all different needs and different motivations. A hacker at a hackathon has different motivations than somebody working for an enterprise trying to build an actual product into an existing one. But our product should be built for all of us, for the amateurs and the professionals, for the startups and the enterprises. And when we start building, every 10 seconds matters. Even the first, and then the next and the next, because the first one influences the next 10, and the next then influences the next 10, etc. If you don't allow people to succeed, if you're not flexible to failure, if your product doesn't self-correct, the next 10 seconds will be with your competitor. And finally, celebrate success. When a developer succeeds on your platform, just remember all the hurdles they overcame, all the learning they did about you, your platform, your industry, and everything they did not think they needed to know, but they still learned because you had to put that in their way. When you've spent this intense effort to inspire and motivate people, to give them and you that chance for them to build something you couldn't have imagined, then celebrate that success as yours. Making it easy for your users to succeed makes it easy for you to succeed. So I'll leave you with this. You can write the best copy in the world. You can have the best instruction videos ever made and the best developed product ever invented. But when somebody steps on a piece of Lego, it still hurts. So that's it for me. Happy to show you more of the Lego. Thank you for joining me.